Hey, what is good, people? Welcome to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. I am your podcast host and your high performance mentor, Desi Abeda. All right, y'all, it's spooky season. As you hear this today, as it gets dropped, it is October 31st, 2022 on Halloween. So it's not going to make a whole lot of sense if you're listening to it on another day. But if you're to it during the week, we are officially in spooky season. And so for today's Mentorship Monday, I wanted to chat with you about three rituals that are the Michael Myers to success in your trajectory. Let's get it. All right. I had to come real. I'm wearing a Wu Tang shirt right now, and it's only proper that Wu Tang's in the background of anything that we do. So Wu Tang is for the children. Let's go. But what's up, people? I was thinking about how I wanted to drop this, and one of the things that I kept coming back to is how I set up people for success who are in our high performers elite programs, who are in some of our group programs, and also those who I work with on more of a kind of a touch and feel with our Voxer programs. And because there's multiple levels to how I work with people. One of the things that I'm seeing across the board as we are looking to create identity based habits in these types of people is on our first call we get really clear about what success looks like for them. I oftentimes will prompt the question or prompt the assignment of, hey, you're probably operating at this point at like 40 to 50%, because you're not sleeping well, you're not moving your body, your mental health is in shambles. And to be honest, like you don't really have a whole lot of community, or you really don't surround yourself with people who have some of the same wants, dreams, and premonitions that you do. So let's make sure that we change that. So in a lot of ways, what I'll help people to devise is like, hey, let's take radical responsibility for where you're at right now, and let's take a look at what are some of the things that you're doing that are not helpful. And so we'll devise work to help them to understand what 90%, I'll just use myself as an example. So 90% Desi, this is how he shows up in these different areas. And what we'll do from there is we'll start to get really specific about what some of those things are. I've gotten to a point in my habits and my rituals right now is that I know that if I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not prioritizing my sleep hygiene, if I'm not prioritizing regularity, oftentimes my morning routine is going to suffer. I'm going to catch myself waking up and going straight to my phone and going into work without sort of taking some of the safety precautions that I have developed for myself into my day and seeing some of the negative impacts of how I show up in my marriage, how I show up as a father, how I show up in my business, and how I show up in my message for you all. There have been times where that has happened. And for me, it's like, all right, let me go ahead and try to hit the ground running tomorrow because I know today didn't work. And so, what I think is really helpful for people to understand is listing out some of those 90% insert your names. Like, what at 90%, what does that person do? What are their habits? What are their rituals? What are their specifics about the day that help them to feel successful? And what I'll do from there is I'll start to reverse engineer back, and then we'll build a program or a life for them that continues to help them to increase their trajectory. Because I have people who are coming in as entrepreneurs that really need some help with taking care of themselves so that they can honor their ideas and honor their business in the way that they launch it and the way that they consistently show up. I also have people who come in that are like, "Hey, I just really, Des, I just need a life coach. Like my systems are trash. Just like help me take care of myself." So that's another way too. Like, okay, at 90%, what does taking care of yourself look like? And then we get real specific. I'm talking about this 90% because I also want to make sure, and this is what the basis of our podcast is today, is the 10%. Some of the 10% areas where if you're the type of person who is struggling, these 10% things or 10% identity based habits are the things that are killing our trajectories. So in the spirit of obviously Halloween, these are the Michael Myers to your success trajectory. So for us, and this is what I do with all of my clients, and this is what I list out each and every week when they're checking in, is we'll develop cautions. Okay. We'll develop things that you know. And as listeners right now, I kind of want you to take a pause real quick. Feel free to pause the podcast so that you can think about this question a bit more critically. But there are things that you are doing right now, things that you're saying, mindsets that are being created, limiting beliefs that have a lot of power right now that are actually killing your trajectory. So I want you to take a pause right now and ask yourself, are there actions, rituals, habits that I'm involved in almost on a daily basis that I know don't serve me in the long run? And this could be serving you in developing healthier relationships. This could be serving you in honoring your ideas and possibly getting a business off the ground or being successful in your business. Or this merely could be you engaging in your health journey, right? We know what some of those things are. And so what the invitation right now for you is to take radical responsibility for where you're at and doing something about it if you know that there's a habit or a ritual that you're partaking in that doesn't actually serve you in the long run. So I wanted to give you three habits or rituals, or in a lot of ways, I guess, mantras that you're living under right now that are the Michael Myers or that are the things that are killing your trajectory. And this is something that I see across the board when I work with people. So let's dive into those three things. Number one, your relationship with alcohol. Yes, let's take some radical responsibility with that. So let's dive into that actual ritual in itself. Okay. We know that from our habit loop that any sort of thing that we are involved in, any sort of action that we take, is involved in three processes. Okay. The first thing is going to be our environment, our trigger, our cue. What cues us to go out and to have that drink? Okay. We also know that the action, which in this case is going to be your relationship with alcohol, how you choose to utilize alcohol, okay, that's going to be our action. The reward system is the type of feeling or the thing that you get from partaking in alcoholic beverages in this case. Okay. Now, this isn't really a plight to tell you, like, hey, you need to stop drinking right now. However, let's create some cautions around this. So, if you are someone and you can do this by yourself. You don't have to do this next to anyone. So if you're someone who has ever said the words, I should probably quit drinking, I should probably slow down on my drinking, I probably shouldn't have drank that much. If you've ever said one of those things to yourselves, whether it is out loud for others to hear or if it's mainly to yourself, this is something that I want to encourage you to take a look at. Because chances are that if you have said something like that, chances are your relationship with alcohol is probably not as healthy as you think that it is. And again, my push for you is not to 100% quit alcohol. Obviously, if you feel like you have an issue, I'm a mental health advocate. You know that I'm a big push for making sure that you have everything that you need, working with mental health professionals to get what you need. And we'll make sure that we put any of those resources in the show notes. So if I'm talking to you and you feel like you need the help, this is probably the push for you to do so. Okay. But going back to this ritual, I think that under the umbrella of taking radical responsibility, I think that it's perfectly okay to acknowledge that if you are someone who has said that, it is very likely that the chances of your relationship with alcohol stemming into your relationships, your 100% your productivity, because we also know what alcohol does to the brain. We also know what alcohol does to sleep. So if you are waking up super sleep deprived, we know that we're not getting 90% insert your name. We're getting the 10% version of you. Okay. So that's our first habit in our ritual, is something for you to just bring some awareness. If you're also someone who engages in the sober insert month, perfect example. Maybe your relationship with alcohol is not as healthy as you think that it is. So that's one ritual that we want to make sure that we're building some awareness around. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, if you are someone who constantly, consistently puts everybody else's needs before your own, let's talk a little bit about how that manifests in your day to day. As a parent, for myself, I recognize that there are things that I need to do in order to continue to pour into my kids. As a married individual, I'm also aware that there are things that I need to do that I consistently need to do in order to pour into my marriage. Engaging in healthy conflict, having tough conversations, creating time, and also noticing what my marriage needs. Right? It takes a very self-aware person to acknowledge some of the areas of growth and also acknowledge some of the areas of strength that you can continue to throw yourself into. All right. So I'm not talking about those things because I think it's a healthy balance. And once you find that balance, it's more kudos to you. At the same time, if you are someone who has ever said to yourself, I need to take better care of myself, I should probably go out on that walk. I should probably get more sleep. If you're someone who constantly shoulds on yourself, this is an area that I would encourage you to think about. Because all of these relationships, all of these ideas, all of these businesses that you have, all of these things that take your time, they're really only getting a fraction of you if you are also if you are not someone who prioritizes their time in a way where you're refilling your cup so that you can fill up the cup of others and other things that you hold to value. And I think as I talk to you right now, I think that we can acknowledge that if you are someone who puts other people's needs before your own, this is not a new thing that's happened. It's probably happened for quite some time, which also might be another push. It's spooky season, so I'm not going to give you the bullshit, which also might be another push that if you are not seeking any sort of mental health professional help, might be a push for you to examine that as well. Okay, because you not taking care of yourself while sacrificing these things that you hold dear to your heart, they're killing your trajectory. They're Michael Myering your trajectory. Okay. Number three, I'm going to read you out a sentence and I need you to replace it for yourself. Okay. So I'll give you some examples, but I also want you to take a pause of the podcast and I want you to take a step back and be like, how do I show up in this area? Okay. Because this is all about curiosity. And I would also say a healthy amount of judgment for you because you can judge whether this is something that actually helps or hurts the trajectory of where you want to go in your life. All right. So here's how the sentence reads: I will do, you're going to insert some type of dream, some type of habit, some type of ritual. When and then you're going to insert a limiting belief that you have that maybe you're aware of, or maybe you've just been giving for quite some time and no one's called you out on your bullshit. And that's entirely okay. So here's an example: I'll get around to taking better care of myself when life slows down. How many of us have said that to either someone or to themselves? I think the numbers are pretty staggering. I know that as a dietitian, as a high performance mentor, that I too have heard this story before. And let me also acknowledge that the stories that you tell yourself, they are very real. I'm not here to discount them. What I'm here to do is to ask you, hey, the story that you've created for yourself, is the story that you're about to tell yourself more important than the trajectory or the life that you want to build? So that's the invitation for you. It's really examining, hey, does this story help or hurt where I want to be in a year, two, three, and beyond? Okay. Another way that this might manifest: hey, I'll start that business or launch that product when I have everything in a row. This happens a lot too, because like I said earlier, I have people coming in who are looking for a high level look into, hey, help me grow this thing that means a lot to me and help me take care of myself in the process. And I also have people who, instead of launching that product, they're just trying to launch the brand new them. They're trying to show up better in their marriage, in their relationships, in just their relationship with themselves, right? Because as we build the trajectory out and as we reverse engineer back, it's important for us to take a look at how we talk about ourselves, and it's important for us to take a look at some of the stories that we've been telling ourselves up to this point. So as we walk you through the three things, the first thing that I want you to be doing, right, is to take a look at that number one, that your relationship with alcohol. The new year is upon us. November's here. By tomorrow. Today's October 31st as I record this. I launch this on the same day. Tomorrow is November. 2023 is is right around the corner. So if you are someone who engages with sober January or sober whatever, or you feel like you need the New Year's cleanse, hey, you know what? It's probably a little bit less about the cleanse and it's probably a little bit more about your relationship with something like this. So that's the first thing. We want to examine some of the really tough areas. Number two is that putting others' needs before your own. There's a healthy balance when you have a lot of people tugging at you. And at the same time, if you're also the same type of person who doesn't take that time to reset, who doesn't replenish their cup, and doesn't have consistent systems to be able to do so, you're the perfect person that I'm talking to right now, because you might need some accountability, you might need some community, and you might need someone who is going to support you through the process of overcoming some of the stories that you tell yourself, which ties us into, that number three, which is I will do insert that really, really valuable thing for you and then you follow that by some sort of limiting belief. So with these Mentorship Monday episodes, I want you to take a really good look about what I want you to take a really good look with the cautions that you have in your life. And as you're creating systems of checking back in, those systems and balances that we're constantly talking about on how you measure backwards, as you're taking those into context and into what you're doing week to week, make sure that you're putting time aside for, hey, what are some of the areas that I know that if I'm engaging in, I'm probably going to blow all this shit up, because those are the barriers. Those are the speed bumps. So for today's Mentorship Monday episodes, we're having a really honest look into your cautions, and hopefully beyond this, what to do with them. Because we've been spending a lot of time on how to build yourself up. And part of building yourself up sometimes is tearing yourself down so that you can see where some of the growth areas are. I hope you enjoy. As always, if there's something that really spoke to you, make sure you screenshot, tag us at DesiaBeta, at I Made It Pod on IG, and let's just start the conversation. This is about getting better, not being perfect. Let's go.